What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are basically going to continue our coverage over Final Crisis. Yes, we are. And we actually do pick up with Final Crisis Revelations. Now, these are basically tie-ins to the main Final Crisis series. Now, with that being said, though, this storyline right here takes place right after Final Crisis number 1. And what I mean by that is, remember, back in Final Crisis number 1, basically the Martian Manhunter was killed off by Libra. And of course, it was a huge blow for the Justice League. And so right now you kind of have the world really affected about the death of the Martian Manhunter because it was a huge thing. You're talking about the idea of one of the higher-ups in the Justice League being killed off just like that, and his body left in the open for everyone to see. And so right now you have the world still kind of grieving and wondering what could be happening to the heroes of Earth right now. But that is the moment where we actually do jump over to the Spectre. Now remember, the Spectre is basically God's vengeance. Now, with that being said, usually if you're doing something wrong like murder, there is a huge possibility that you could get a visit from the Spectre. Now, with that being said, we actually do pick up with Dr. Light. Now, Dr. Light was one of the two characters who had basically helped out Libra to kill off the Martian Manhunter. And so, of course, this dude is a guy who murdered someone. And so, of course, that means there is a possibility that he could have a visit from the Spectre. And of course, he does. But right before you have the Spectre arrive, we do see Dr. Light doing some more horrible things, like torture, it seems like. But either way, you do have the Spectre arrive. And when he does basically show Dr. Light why he is the spirit of God's vengeance. And so with that being said, you have Spectre do a lot of horrible things to Dr. Light in these few pages. And really, you can say that right now, this is basically Spectre kind of torturing Dr. Light up to the point where he actually does kill off Dr. Light. Now, that is the moment where we actually do jump over to a random hospital. Now, the reason why, because we actually do pick up with some nuns right now, checking up on one of their sisters. Now, of course, this sister was badly beaten, and I mean, she was badly beaten. And of course, you do have the doctors telling the nuns, like, hey, listen, we can't do anything for her at all. Like right now, she is seriously injured. Anything else we do could basically kill her off. And so right now, the only thing we can do is kind of just let her go into the afterlife. And her name is Clarice. Now, Clarice is going to be somewhat important, not really somewhat. She's going to be very important for this storyline. But basically, she's going to die any moment now. Now, we do jump back over to the Spirit of Vengeance, Spectre. Now, with that being said, though, right now you do have the Spectre going after another character, and that character will be Ifki. Now, Ifki was the other person who helped Libra kill off the Martian Manhunter. And so, of course, it does make sense why you have the Spectre going after Ifki. It's the Spectre right now going after every single person who had basically killed the Martian Manhunter. So Libra, Dr. Light, and of course, Ifki. Now, Dr. Light is already dead. So now it comes down to Ifki being next. And of course, you do have the Spectre right now kind of torturing Ifki, just like he did with Dr. Light. But of course, at the end of the torturing, you do have the Spectre basically killing off Ifki. Now, there is something I do want to talk about real quick. When it comes to the Spectre, you have to remember he is a spirit of vengeance, but basically that spirit is attached to a soul, somebody who had died just recently. And so you have two beings in one body, the Spectre spirit and someone else who had just died recently. Now, at this point in DC Comics, it was a character known as Crispus Allen. And Crispus Allen was actually a detective in Gotham City who was, of course, murdered. But right after he was killed off, of course, his soul was attached to the Spirit of Vengeance. And the reason why I'm telling you this right now is because when it comes to the Spectre and Crispus, they do not agree on how things should be handled. Yes, they are the Spirit of Vengeance, but sometimes the Spectre takes things a tad bit too far. And for Crispus, he does not like that at all. It's not justice, he says sometimes. But either way, you do have the Spectre go ahead and killing off Ifki and about to go after the Libra next. Now, we actually do jump over to England, where we actually do pick up with Renee Montoya. Now, remember, Renee Montoya was a character who was actually famous back in the Batman the Animated Series back in 1990. But of course, when DC Comics finally brought her over in the 2000s, of course, she was just your regular police officer in Gotham City, but then she was promoted to become the Question. Now, with all that being said, though, you do have Renee Montoya in England right now, and this right here is kind of picking up where our earlier videos left off at when it comes to Final Crisis, but also things that happened back in the 52 storyline. But basically right now you have Renee Montoya being confronted by a bunch of people. Now, these bunch of people belong to an order known as the Order of Stone or the Order of Lilith. And basically, back in the 52 storyline, Renee Montoya had actually joined that religion group to basically stop one of their rituals. But while she was in that group, of course, you had the people in that order believe that Renee Montoya was going to be their leader, their future successor, and lead them into success down the road, but also do all the different crimes down the road as well. But in reality, it was really Renee Montoya just joining that religion, that order, to basically stop them. And so right now, they're coming after her to get revenge. But at the same time, she's trying to stop them from grabbing a certain item that is going to be very important for this storyline. Now, we actually do jump back over to the Spectre. And right now, you do have the Spectre kind of basically on his way over to Libra, because remember, Libra is one of the people who had killed the Martian Manhunter. Really, he's the main one. But either way, though, remember, when it comes to the Spectre, there's two people in one body. The spirit of the Spectre, but also Crispus Allen, the person kind of being the host for the spirit of Spectre. But when it comes to Crispus Allen, he hates the idea of being the spirit of vengeance, because when it comes to vengeance, you're not doing justice. You're not doing anything good at all, because vengeance is just revenge. It comes from the heart. But when it comes to justice, it comes from your head. You're trying to do something right. And so basically hates the idea how the spirit of vengeance looks at himself like he's doing justice for the world, but in reality, he's just going around getting revenge for different people. Now, with that being said, though, you do have the Spectre go and find Libra. Now, this is huge because earlier we saw the Spectre basically kill off Dr. Light and Iffy. And so Libra is the last one who needs to be handled because, again, Libra did kill off the Martian Manhunter. The problem is, though, when you do have the Spectre try to grab Libra and basically begin the process of torturing him and finally killing him, the Spectre cannot do anything at all to Libra. Like, basically, his powers get canceled. And out of that right there, you do have the Spectre tell Crispus, we can't punish him. Like, something has stopped us from basically punishing Libra. And it's kind of like, wait, whoa, what in the world had basically stopped the Spectre from punishing Libra? What just happened? And just like that, you do have the Spectre just disappear and get the heck out of there. Now, we actually do jump back over to the Order of Lilith or the Order of Stone. And right now, you do have the Order of Stone or the Order of Lilith right now out in the middle of the ocean, basically looking for a particular item. Now, this particular item is going to hold a lot of power. And of course, that power is basically has the ability to kill off a god or to raise a new kind of god. Now, of course, the Order is able to find this item, some kind a spear, and we are going to learn more about this spear down the road. But basically, right after they're able to find the spear, you do have Renee Montoya appear. Now, when Renee Montoya appears, of course, it's her job, or really her trying to stop them right now from taking this spear with them and causing havoc across the world, because she knows how powerful the spear is. And of course, she wants to make sure that this order does not get the spear to cause havoc across the world. And so she does try to stop the order from taking the spear. But the problem is, though, the leader of this group is holding the spear, and she does use the power of the spear on Renee Montoya, sending her flying back into a different part of the boat. Now, that is the moment where we actually do pick up with Crispus Allen. Now, remember, Crispus Allen is basically the Spectre. He is one of the two parts you need to become the Spectre, the spirit of Spectre and the host. Now, of course, the host is Crispus Allen. Now, with that being said, though, you do have Crispus Allen right now angry at God. And this is where we kind of learn a tad bit more about Crispus Allen. And what I mean by that is when it comes to Crispus Allen, basically he was murdered. I almost said murdered. He was murdered. And with him being murdered, he was the perfect choice to become the host for the spirit of the Spectre. Now, with that being said, as he went on the world being the Spectre, he had to kill his own son. And the reason why, because his son had also committed murder, but his son killed the guy who killed him. And so is Crispus Allen very upset that he had to kill his own son because his son killed his murderer. And so is Crispus Allen upset with God. He's not even more upset with God because, of course, God did not let the Spectre kill off Libra. And the question is, though, why? Why didn't God let the Spectre kill off Libra? Now, you do have Crispus say that he is no longer going to work with the Spectre anymore. He is done being the spirit of vengeance. But of course, that is the moment you do have the Spectre begin to take over the body of Crispus Allen. And of course, you have Crispus find out who is his next target, which is Renee Montoya. Now, getting back over to Renee Montoya, we actually do see her right now fighting against the people of the Order of Lilith. And right now, you have her best trying to kind of withstand their attack and trying to get away, but to also grab a spear that they have found in the middle of the ocean. But while she's fighting against them, well, that is the moment you do have the Spectre appear. And of course, the Spectre tells her that he is her next target, that basically he is about to go after her and possibly kill her. Now, the reason why you basically do have Renee Montoya being the next target for the Spectre is because Ray Montoya had joined the Order and they had looked at her as their leader. And of course, they have committed a lot of murder over the year or time period that she was part of the Order, that basically it is a Spectre saying you are guilty for all the crimes that your Order had committed. Now, of course, it's a Spectre not realizing that when it came to Renee Montoya, she did not join the Order to basically take over the Order. She basically joined the Order to stop it. But of course, they had committed a lot of crimes when she was in the Order. And so right now, it is a Spectre saying you have to die for what you have basically done. Now, we also kind of find out that basically Renee Montoya and Crispus Allen, they used to be partners in police work back in Gotham City. Now, of course, he had died. But of course, after he had died, she had no idea that homeboy became the Spectre, because not a lot of people actually meet the Spectre. And if you do, you know what? It's for two reasons. One, to actually help him, or two, you're going to die by him. And right now, it is Spectre basically trying to kill off Renee Montoya. But that is the moment you do have Renee Montoya grab a spear once again, because she is trying to make sure that the Order does not get their hands on the spear and basically take it with them. And so, of course, she does grab it. And of course, it does start a small battle between the Spectre, the Order, and Renee Montoya. But while you have all three sides battling against one another, you do have the Spectre basically teleport Renee Montoya away. The problem is, though, when he did that, she left behind the spear. And of course, the spear is something the Order really wanted, and now they have it. Now, of course, that is the moment you do have the story kind of jump over to where Renee Montoya and also the Spectre had teleported to. And of course, this is the moment you do have Renee Montoya call the Spectre stupid, because the reason why, he left the spear behind. And that spear is known as the Spear of Destiny. And of course, when it comes to the leader of the Order, she is basically destined to do something big. And that big could basically ruin the entire world. And so, of course, it is Renee Montoya very upset with what the Spectre had basically done. Now, with that being said, though, you do have the Spectre basically say, who cares? Like, honestly, I don't care. Like, you're my next target. You have to go bye-bye. I'll make sure that this process is painless, but hey, you are going to die. But before I kill you, I will basically give you the last chance to see something you do care for, something you do love. And of course, it is Batwoman. Of course, they did have a small fling here and there, but of course, it is the Spectre saying, look, I am showing you Batwoman and showing you how she's okay right now. She's fighting against a bunch of bad guys, but this is the last thing you're going to see, something that you love. But basically, you gotta die. Now, that is the moment you do have basically the Spectre take Renee Montoya to the GCPD building, of course, the Gotham City Police Department building. But either way, though, the reason why he does that is because he knows how special this place is, especially when it comes to the bat signal. Now, with that being said, though, he does tell her, you have to die because you were the leader of the Order of Stone, the Order of Lilith. Now, with that being said, though, when it comes to Renee Montoya, she was the leader, but not by choice. When she had basically joined the order, she was just your regular person, but they had called her their leader. Because of them, she was destined to do something else. But either way, though, even though she left, they still kind of looked at her as their leader. And because that cult, that group, that order, they had basically caused so many problems across the world, being rapists, murderers. And so, of course, with her being called their leader, it is God, but also the Spectre saying, hey, they look at you basically as their leader. And so their crimes is on your hands. And so you have to die for those crimes, even though it was Renee saying she is actually innocent. And honestly, she is innocent. The God and also the Spectre basically say, who cares? You have to basically die. Now, right when you see the Spectre about to go ahead and kill off Renee Montoya, that is the moment she is actually saved by another spirit of God, the spirit of mercy, Radiant. Now, this is actually huge because remember that nun from earlier that got badly injured in the hospital, and of course the doctor said they couldn't do anything else to save her life? Well, she died, but God gave her a new chance to be the spirit of mercy, Radiant. And of course, right now is God showing Renee Montoya mercy. Now, Spectre is very upset by this for two different reasons. The first one's because he feels like God is basically right now stopping him from doing his job, which is right now going around the world, showing the world vengeance, and basically not letting him go ahead and show Renee Montoya vengeance. But the second reason is very important because, like I said earlier, when it came to Crispus Allen, basically he was killed off, but his son killed off his murderer. But because his son became a murderer, you had God basically told Crispus, you have to kill your own son now. And so right now it's Crispus wondering, why does Renee Montoya get a pass, but not his son? His son is dead, but Renee gets a second chance. This is not fair. But when it comes to Renee Montoya, she actually did nothing wrong. That order did call her their leader, but of course, she was not their leader. She was just there to basically stop a ritual from happening. Now, that is the moment we actually do pick back up with the Order of Lilith, or the Order of Stone. But basically right now, you do have the Order find Vandal Savage. Now, this is actually very huge because Vandal Savage is a character that has been alive for a very long time, all the way back to when cavemen were around. But basically, when it comes to Vandal Savage, at this point, we do know that he had joined Libra's side. He is one of the inner circles of Libra's organization. Now, with that being said, though, you do have the Order of Lilith, or the Order of Stone, come to Vandal Savage to basically hand him the Spear of Destiny. And the reason why, because with the Spear of Destiny, it does have a huge connection to God, but basically it will change Vandal Savage into Cain, the original sinner. Because remember, Cain is the original sinner when it comes to the whole Christian religion Bible stuff. But either way, though, when it comes to Vandal Savage, he does get stabbed with a Spear of Destiny, and he is changed into Cain, the original sinner. He is alive again, and now is Cain. Goal is to kill off God, but first, he must kill off the Spectre first. Now, we actually do pick back up with Renee Montoya, Spectre, and also Radiant. Now, this is a conversation where basically you have them right now talking about the idea that Renee Montoya was given a free pass, a second chance in life. Now, with that being said, though, of course, that is the moment you do have a bunch of police officers appear. Now, when these police officers actually appear, we come to find out their minds have been taken over by the anti-life equation. Because remember, back in Final Crisis number 3, we saw that the anti-life equation had went global. And with that thing going global, of course, that means a lot of people had basically lost their free will. And so right now, they're all kind of basically following the rules of Darkseid. And right now, they're trying to get Renee Montoya. Now, you do have Radiant and also Spectre kind of pushing back this mob of police officers who are trying to get to Renee Montoya. But while they're trying to hold them back, Renee Montoya is hearing the anti-life equation getting into her head. And of course, what it's trying to get inside her head is trying to break her free will and, of course, put her under Darkseid's control. And so right now she's trying to fight against it. But of course, she's having a hard time doing that. And so you have Radiant and Spectre basically teleport Renee Montoya away to somewhere else. Now, of course, you have Spectre and Radiant teleport Renee Montoya to where Batwoman is at. Now, remember earlier, Batwoman was actually fighting against a bunch of different characters and creatures. And, of course, she was getting overrun. Now, of course, when Renee Montoya finds Batwoman, she is basically on the ground, knocked out. And this is Renee Montoya being very worried for the woman that she kind of loves. And so you have Renee run over to Batwoman like, hey, are you okay? Are you alive? Please be alive. I cannot lose you. But that is the moment we come to find out that basically Batwoman has also been taken over with the anti-life equation. Now, as we get into the third chapter, of course, we actually do pick up right now with the world falling apart. Because remember, what we saw in Final Crisis number 3 actually happened, where you have everybody right now being taken over by the anti-life equation. Now, not everybody, but most of the world has been infected by the anti-life equation. Now, with that being said, though, we actually do pick up right now with Spectre and also Radiant trying to protect themselves from the army of humans that have been taken over by the anti-life equation. But of course, you do have Spectre ask a very important question. Why is God letting this happen right now? If God is kind of like the overall being of everything in the universe, then why is he basically right now letting the earth fall apart? What in the world is going on right now? And how can Spectre and Radiant save the day? Now, getting back over to Renee Montoya, who's right now basically getting her butt kicked by Batwoman. This is Renee Montoya finding out that basically something is going on around the world. And of course, that something has infected Batwoman. And of course, we know it is the anti-life equation. But when it comes to Renee Montoya, she has no idea what's happening right now around the world. But either way, though, it's her right now trying to defend herself against Batwoman, which is a very huge task to do because Batwoman is a very good fighter. But either way, though, you do actually have Spectre and Radiant appear once again to save Renee Montoya's life. But of course, this time they're going to teleport her alongside with them somewhere else that is basically safe, because you do have Radiant say that this area, these people, they're a lost cause. We can't do anything at all to basically save their lives. So we have to leave right now if we want to survive, especially your friend Renee Montoya. Now, of course, we actually do jump over to Cain. Now, remember, Cain is basically Vandal Savage, but of course, he was reborn as Cain right now. And so you do have Cain just going around and enjoying what he's seeing right now, what's happening in the world. Complete chaos. The world is falling apart thanks to the anti-life equation. And so, of course, now is Cain wondering, what is next? And he's wondering when he can begin the process of doing the things he always wanted to do as soon as he came back to life. But the first thing he wants to do is right now have all his slaves come to him, all his sinners come to him, so that he'll be able to add on to the chaos that is happening right now across the world. And of course, he plans on doing a lot of things to this world. Now, we actually do see that basically when it comes to the Spectre and also Radiant, they have basically taken Renee Montoya to a nearby church. Now, of course, this nearby church is basically a safe haven for them right now to figure out what in the world is going on. Now, you do have Radiant being able to actually heal up Renee Montoya because she was injured by Batwoman, but you do have Renee Montoya say that she saw the crime Bible. And the crime Bible is basically just the anti-Bible. But basically in the crime Bible, it foresaw all of this happening. And so it's Renee Montoya saying, the crime Bible, I read it and it saw this happening. But the question is now, what can we do to basically save the day? Now, with that being said, you do have Spectre very upset right now with God, because to Spectre, it feels like God had basically abandoned them. Because right now, if God was around, he would help Spectre and Radiant deal with this problem. But right now, there is no God. God is not here to basically help them. And this is Spectre, well, the host of Spectre, very upset with the idea that basically God has abandoned them. Now, of course, that is the moment more things begin to pop off at this church. Because while you have Radiant and Spectre and also Renee Montoya talking to one another, you do have some innocent people running into the church asking for protection, because a lot of things are happening outside the church right now. And of course, you do have Radiant let them inside the church. But of course, right after she does that, she looks outside, and what she sees is an army of people, super villains, superheroes, regular people that basically have been taken over by the anti-life equation. Darkseid had basically won, it seems like. And of course, with them being able to actually win, it does not look good right now for our heroes. Now, this leads into a very important conversation. And this conversation about the idea of, has God actually abandoned his people? Is God still around? Because right now, the world is falling apart. And Spectre and Radiant, they're unable to do anything at all to the people who are affected with the anti-life equation, especially people who are right now working for Darkseid, which of course right now the question is, has God basically abandoned his people? Because right now, God is not doing anything at all to help Radiant, Spectre, and Renee fight against what's happening right now across the world, but especially around them. Now, with that being said, you do have Spectre say, I think God has left us behind. He is no longer around, and we're on our own to figure out what in the world to do here to basically save the earth. Now, you didn't have Renee said in the Crying Bible, all of this was foreseen. The spirit destiny, Cain coming back to life, the anti-life equation. Of course, Cain coming after Spectre, the possible death of Spectre. Because when it comes to Cain, he has to kill off Spectre, the vengeance of God. That is what Cain wants to do. And right now, Cain is going to try to kill off the Spectre. And so right now, it's Renee saying, he's coming after you. And the thing is, though, your powers did not work on the people we saw earlier who were infected with the anti-life equation. But on top of that, your powers did not work on Libra. So how much faith do you have right now, Spectre, that you think that you'll be able to actually defeat Cain? But right after that, you do have another important thing happen. And of course, that important thing is when you have Radiant actually see the three people who had basically beaten her so bad that they are technically her killers. Because they're in the church right now hiding from what's happening around the world. But of course, these three men are the one who had basically beaten her so bad that she had died. These are really her murderers right now in the church. And of course, she does, as a Spectre, has God talking to you recently? Because if he has talked to you recently, is he telling you to kill these guys right here? Because these three guys had killed me. And of course, you have Spectre say, no, I have not heard from God at all. If I did, I would tell you. And so you have Radiant wondering, what should she do with these three men? Can she actually forgive them? Now, she does show the three men what they have turned into, which is, of course, the spirit of mercy. But either way, though, you do have her kind of walk away, because you do have Renee Montoya say, he is here. And of course, the person that she was talking about is, of course, Cain. Cain has arrived. Now, with Cain arriving, of course, that means that right now Cain is after the Spectre. Now, the reason why he is after the Spectre, again, because Spectre is the spirit of vengeance for God's work. But on top of that, the spirit of vengeance, Spectre, was the one that had scarred Cain years ago. Because when it comes to Cain, Cain was badly scarred by Spectre. And so this is Cain getting revenge against Spectre for two different reasons. But remember, he's not really after the host. He's really after the spirit of vengeance. Because remember, when it comes to Spectre, it's two beings in one body, the host and also the spirit of Spectre. But either way, though, you do have Spectre kind of like, okay, you know what? You want me? I'm here. Let's go. The problem is, though, you do have Spectre get his butt whooped by Cain. Cain easily defeats Spectre just like that. And that right there is very huge, because now it shows that what Renee said earlier, how basically Spectre will not be able to defeat Cain, is coming true, because Cain powers is just too strong. Spectre powers does not work on Cain, on anybody who has ties to the anti-life equation. Now, when it comes to the fourth chapter, we basically do pick up right now with Cain continuing to beat down on Spectre. But while you have Cain doing that, you do have Renee Montoya kind of talk to us as the readers, where she basically says in the Bible, it does tell us that when Cain does come back, it does mean the end of the world, the end of everything. And with Cain being here, of course, right now, the world falling apart and Cain being here, it does mean the end of everything. Now, with that being said, you then have Cain use the Spear of Destiny on Spectre. And when he does that, he's actually able to split Spectre and Crispus apart from one another. Because remember, when it comes to those two characters, they do make up Spectre. But of course, with Cain using the Spear of Destiny, he is able to remove the two and basically killing off Crispus, but then also making the Spirit of Vengeance his slave. And so now it does seem like all hope is lost, because Spectre was just easily defeated. His host is now dead, and the Spirit of Vengeance is now the slave to Cain. Now, right after that, you do have the rest of our heroes kind of look at Cain like, okay, we can't win here. We are basically about to lose to Cain. But that is the moment you didn't have Cain tell the Spirit of Mercy, Radiant, that he has no need for her. That basically he does not even want her around. And so, of course, he does kind of ignore her and takes his attention towards Renee Montoya. He wants to go ahead and kill her off. Now, with that being said, though, he does use the Spear of Destiny on Renee Montoya. But here comes the big shocking moment, though. The spear does not work on Renee Montoya. Somehow, the spear is not affecting her at all. And of course, this is a huge, shocking moment, because he does blast her with the Spear of Destiny energy, and nothing even happens at all. Now, of course, the Spear of Destiny energy did not work on Renee Montoya. That does not mean that basically Cain cannot stab her to basically kill her. And so you do have Cain say, fine, I'll just go ahead and stab you as a way to go ahead and get rid of you. The problem is, though, right when he's about to stab her, that is the moment you do have Huntress appear. Now, with Huntress appearing in this book, of course, that means they now have extra help to hopefully figure out how in the world they are going to save the day, how they're going to stop Cain. But for right now, they don't do that. Instead, they run inside the church. And the reason why, because with Radiant, she's able to put a force field around the church to protect the people inside the church. And so right now, Renee Montoya, Huntress, and the other people inside the church are protected by Radiant in her force field. And of course, that keeps Cain and his slaves on the outside for the time being. Now, of course, once they do get inside the church, it does lead into an argument. Now, this argument is, of course, really coming from Renee Montoya. But right before the argument, you do have basically Radiant say that when it comes to the Spectre, the spirit of vengeance, of course, with the spirit now being Cain's slave, the body of Campus is now just a body. And so with them just being a body, he's now dead all over again. Because remember, to you be a host for Spectre, you had to be dead. You have to be murdered. And of course, when it came to Alan, he was dead. But of course, when the spirit took over his body, he was brought back to life again. But of course, with the spirit now being gone and being a slave to Cain, well, Alan is now dead all over again. Now, this does tick off Renee, because you do have Renee say that basically it seems like Radiant knows something and she's not telling them what she needs to know. And of course, with Renee being really angry at the idea that her old friend has now died all over again, and also Radiant kind of hiding things from her, she's kind of wondering what else could pop off. And she's arguing with everyone in the church right now, Huntress and also Radiant. But that is the moment you do have Renee realize, oh my God, I just realized something. Now, this is the moment where you basically have Renee realize like, oh my God, I figured it out, but also you kind of have Radiant kind of give more detail on what's really happening outside in the world right now and why God is not able to help out, because this conflict, this battle is not going to be done by God or any of his creations like, the Spectre or Radiant, except it comes down to the humans basically fighting for their freedom. It comes down to them deciding that they will have free will. If they are able to fight for their free will, that'll be the only way they'll be able to actually defeat Cain and save the day. And so that right there is very important, because if they're actually able to do that, that means they could defeat Cain and save the day and fight against the anti-life equation. Because remember, the anti-life equation is about the idea of someone having no free will. And so with that happening right there, is God saying, if you want to win this war, you have to fight for your freedom, fight for your free will. That is how all of this is going to basically be solved. Now, of course, you do have other information kind of told to us, like basically when it comes to the Spear of Destiny, it can be used by almost anyone. Of course, right now it's being used by an evil person. And so, of course, the powers of the Spear has been corrupted. But right after that, you then have basically Cain trying to make a deal with Radiant, saying that Cain will basically go ahead and kill off the people who had murdered her when she was a human still. Because remember, before all of this went down, we saw her as a nun in the hospital and she was badly beaten and she died in that hospital. And so this is Cain saying, I will kill the ones who had killed you in your past life if you go ahead and just let down your barrier and let me continue my work. Now, of course, you do have Radiant say no, but then you have Cain basically use the Spectre, because remember, the Spectre right now is a slave to Cain, and do a huge crazy thing, because you do have Cain basically make Spectre to recite the anti-life equation. And when he does that, he unmakes creation itself and rebuilds the world in Darkseid's name. Of course, kind of saying that basically Darkseid has won. Now, of course, with the world being remade in the image of Darkseid, of course, everything is beginning to fall apart, including, of course, all God's creation, like the Spirit of Mercy, Radiant. Radiant is basically disappearing, because with the world being remade in the image of Darkseid, of course, that means that there's no God creation. That means she has to go. And now here's a problem though. If she does disappear, that means the force field that she had placed around the church is basically going to disappear. And then sooner or later, that mob outside, everyone under the anti-life equation, is going to basically charge the church and take everything over. It seems like the end for our characters, but that is the moment you do have Renee Montoya tell Huntress that she does have a particular plan that could possibly work. The problem is though, she only knows half the plan. The other half is going to be more of them winging it to see if it actually does work. But basically their plan is to take the spear away from Cain, because if they do that, it means everything he has done so far will basically be undone. And so right now, that is their main game plan. Remove the spear away from Cain. And of course, you do have Huntress and Renee go out there to hopefully accomplish this goal. The problem is, though, Cain is too strong. He also has a lot of people under his control, including Batwoman and also Catwoman. Two characters right now under the anti-life equation. And of course, right now, they're being used to attack Renee Montoya. And so right now, you do have basically Renee and Huntress having a hard time fighting against Batwoman and also Catwoman. And it actually does lead up to the idea of Huntress being stabbed by Catwoman. And where being stabbed by Catwoman, there goes Huntress. That only leaves Renee Montoya to fight against Cain and his army of people. The problem is, though, you have Cain basically have his slaves hold down Renee Montoya, and then he stabs her. He stabs Renee Montoya. And so now you have both characters being stabbed, and it does look like all hope is actually lost. And so with the spear basically being impaled inside the body of Renee Montoya, you do have Renee say, fine, I'll just take the spear with me. And she does. And then she pulled the spear out of her body. But with the spear now being in her possession, she begins the process of actually using the spear to begin to kind of undo everything that Cain had basically done. So for example, she does heal up Huntress, because remember, Huntress was stabbed by Catwoman. Now, here's the thing though. Right after that, you do have Renee ask Radiant, okay, I need you to heal me. But you have Radiant say no. And the reason why, because right now I'm still being undone. Because remember earlier, you had Cain have Spectre basically remake the world in Darkseid's image. And so right now, Renee needs to do one last thing, which is kind of bring Spectre back to life. Because if she does that, then Spectre will be able to remake the world back in God's image. And if she does that right there, then maybe, just maybe, Radiant will be able to actually heal Renee. Here comes the thing though. Renee also needs to kind of get rid of corruption in the spear, because with the spear being used by evil so many times, the spear is corrupted. And so basically Renee needs to kind of get rid of the corruption. The problem is though, she has to kind of sacrifice her life to bring someone back to life. And of course, that person is no other than Crispus. Because remember, he died when Cain has split the Spectre and Crispus apart, because he was already dead. The spirit was keeping Crispus alive as a ghost kind of. But when they split, he died again. And so it's Radiant saying, if you want me to heal you up, you have to bring the Spectre back to life. But you also have to bring your friend back to life and sacrifice your own. And of course, she does that. And so that is the moment you do have the Spectre coming back to life. And with the Spectre coming back to life, of course, that includes Crispus as well. You do have Crispus and Spectre begin to kind of remake the world back in God's image. How it was before you had Cain force the Spectre to basically change the world into Darkseid's image. But of course, right after you have Spectre do that right there, of course, now Cain is basically powerless, because now Spectre is now holding the Spear of Destiny, and with them holding the Spear of Destiny, and of course, with no corruption at all, Spectre is way more powerful than Cain is. And so you have Cain basically get chained up by the Spectre. Now, Cain still believes that his God is going to win. And of course, we could believe that his God is Darkseid. Because remember, guys, when it comes to DC Comics, they believe the God of Apocalypse and the God of New Genesis are the new gods. They're going to replace the old gods down the road. And so with that being said, you do have basically Spectre say, you may think that, but your God is going to lose. Kind of saying, like, foreshadowing Darkseid is going to lose down the road. But either way, you do have Cain say, you cannot kill me, because your God will not allow that to happen. So you basically cannot kill me. But you didn't have the Spectre say, oh, you're right, I cannot kill you. But there is also torture though. And what Spectre basically meant by that, because now with Cain being alive again, what's going to happen to Cain from now on is that Cain is going to travel around the world, but he is never going to find peace. That no matter where he goes, people are going to hate him. And this will basically happen to him over and over again until God feels like his punishment is finally done. Now, right after that, you then have Huntress realize that Renee Montoya was brought back to life, or her wound was healed up. But the question is, though, what did Renee do with the Spear of Destiny? Because, of course, she was able to kind of get rid of corruption. But the thing was, though, it was said earlier, she has to bring somebody back to life to kind of save her life, to kind of sacrifice her life, to kind of get rid of corruption inside the Spear. And basically, you have Renee tell us, the readers, that no, she did not bring back Crispus. Instead, she brought back his son, Jake. Because remember, Jake died by the hands of the Spectre. Because remember, when Crispus died, of course, his son went after his father's murderer. And of course, when he did that, the Spectre was basically assigned to go ahead and kill off Jake Allen. And so with that, of course, he was also killed off. And so what Renee Montoya did was she basically used the power of the Spear to bring back Jake Allen. And that is how the story ends. Because you do have Spectre and Radiant go on to their next mission that God has given them. But with that being said, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. Sorry guys, my voice is not all the way healed up, but I gotta record so y'all can still have some videos down the road. With that being said, I do hope you enjoyed today's comic book video. Later guys.